As we enter October and the final stretch to the 2024 presidential election, today we'll be taking a look at the 2024 electoral map based on current polling averages from every single state. So you can see where Harris and Trump stand on the path to 270 electoral votes based on the latest data. We'll begin on the West Coast with the state of Washington, where Kamala Harris leads by 13.8 percentage points. For context, Biden won this state by nearly 20% in 2020. So still a pretty significant drop-off for Harris from where Biden was 4 years ago. The state of Washington is going to be likely blue. While in Oregon, we only have one poll. Kamala Harris leads by 5%. This was a poll conducted after she entered the race, replacing Biden as the Democratic nominee. So Oregon is going to be lean blue on our map. And then in California, this is Kamala Harris's home state. She served as a U.S. Senator from the Golden State for 4 years before becoming vice president. You'd think she would be doing better than Biden, but she's doing worse. She leads by just 24 points, a state that Biden won by nearly 30 in the last election. So California is going to be solid blue, but honestly, she should be doing better. Next up in Nevada, this is the first of 7 ultra-competitive states. Kamala Harris currently leads by 0.6%. It is a very close margin. We have polls that show Trump leading, polls that show Harris leading, and if you go back to 2020, Joe Biden was supposed to win Nevada by 5 points. He won it by 2.4. The polling overestimated Democrats, with Kamala Harris leading by just 0.6. It is pretty unlikely that she's going to be able to win this state, but on our map for now, Nevada will be tilt blue, but in the end, I do expect Trump to flip the state, becoming the first Republican to win it since 2004. Next up in Arizona, we have a state that Joe Biden carried in the last election, but Trump is on track to flip back this time around. In fact, the former president leads by 2.5%. He's doing better in Arizona than any other swing state. In fact, he's led in all 8 of the last 8 polls conducted in Arizona. 2.5%. That's going to be a lean margin for Donald Trump. He is absolutely dominating in this state, one that he lost in 2020, but one that he did win back in 2016 by 3.5 percentage points. Arizona's probably going to go to the former president by around 3 to 4 points based on this polling average and the fact that he is historically severely underestimated by polls. So Arizona is going to be lean red on our map. Trump is easily going to flip this state back. Next up, in Colorado and New Mexico, we have 2 states that easily went to Joe Biden in the last election. He won them both by double-digit margins, Colorado by 14, New Mexico by 11. Today, Harris leads by just 11 points in Colorado, and this is according to a Democratic internal poll. If any poll is going to favor Harris, it is going to be one conducted by a sponsor of the Democratic Party, and so 11 points in favor of the vice president. In the end, she's probably going to win the state by less than 7. Same thing in New Mexico. She's going to win this state by less than 7 as well, but according to the polling average, she has an 8.5% lead, although you can see that her polling lead is dwindling as every new poll is released. This race is becoming more and more competitive. The latest Rasmussen poll, which is one of the most accurate pollsters in the country, they have Harris leading by just 6 points. With Hispanic voters moving to the right, New Mexico is going to get increasingly close. And so the state is going to be likely blue on our map along with Colorado, but in the end, these 2 states are probably going to go to Harris by a lean margin. Before we continue, 81% of you guys are not currently subscribed, so please take the time to subscribe right now for more content like this leading up to the election in November, and join my Discord server to chat with me personally. Link in the description below. Moving on to Texas, this is a state that really underestimated support for Trump in the last election. Polling said he was only going to win the Lone Star State by 1%. In the end, he won it by 6. It's a state he carried by nearly 10 points in 2016, and today the former president leads in Texas by 5.2%. There's no doubt the state is going to go to the GOP once again. They haven't lost this state since 1976. Trump can probably win by a double-digit margin or close to it, despite what the current polling says. So on our map, Texas is going to be lean red, but obviously he's going to perform much better than that. And in terms of all of these states in the middle of the country, Trump is going to win every single one of them. Utah, Wyoming, Idaho, Montana, North and South Dakota, all of Nebraska except the 2nd District, as well as Kansas and Oklahoma, all deep red states. And then in the 2nd District of Nebraska, Kamala Harris currently leads by 10 points, so it is going going to be likely blue. And then in Alaska and Hawaii, these are both going to be solid for either party. Alaska solid red and Hawaii solid blue. Moving on now to the Midwest, this is going to be a hugely consequential region. It's likely here that the election will be won or lost for both candidates. And so we're going to begin up in Minnesota, where Kamala Harris leads by 4.7%. This is honestly not that great. It's say that Joe Biden won by 7 points in the last election. But Kamala Harris now, she has Tim Walz, the incoming governor of Minnesota, on the ticket with her. And even with him as her running mate, she's leading by less than 5 points. This is pretty abysmal for the vice president. If she can't even win Minnesota by 7 points or more, she's probably going to have a very difficult time winning states like Wisconsin and Michigan. So on our map, Minnesota is going to be lean blue. This is not where Vice President Harris needs to be right now. Meanwhile, Iowa, Illinois, and Indiana, these are all going to be relatively safe for one party or the other. Iowa's going to be likely red, Illinois solid blue, and Indiana solid red. Moving on now to Wisconsin, which is going to be one of the most competitive states in the entire country. This is a must-win state for the Kamala Harris campaign. Trump can definitely afford to lose, but for Harris, if she loses Wisconsin, she loses the election entirely. The good thing for her is that she does lead by 0.5% in the polling, but the bad news is that Joe Biden led by 7 points on election night and only won Wisconsin by 0.63% when all the votes were counted. At this point in September, Biden led by 5.5%, Clinton led by 4.7%. Seeing Harris at 0.5%, you know that she is performing significantly worse than the last two Democratic nominees. And so just based on the raw numbers, yes, she is leading, but is she on track to win Wisconsin? Absolutely not. So the state is going to be lean blue for now, just based on the data. But in the end, we're probably going to see a much different result. In neighboring Michigan, we have another extremely important state for the Harris campaign. This is the most liberal out of all 7 swing states. If Harris cannot win Michigan, there's no way she's going to be able to win anywhere else. The Wolverine state, though, does currently favor her by 1.3%. But again, just look at how she's doing compared to Hillary and Biden from the last 2 elections. Biden led by 5.2, Clinton led by 4.7. She is consistently doing worse. She might have a tiny lead, but she's probably going to lose it soon. The latest Atlas Intel poll, which is the most accurate pollster for the 2020 election, they have Trump leading by a 4% margin. Every single poll said that Clinton was going to win Michigan back in 2016, but in the end, she lost it. It was close, but she did not win Michigan. And today, I would say Michigan does favor Trump once again, but just based on the polling numbers alone, the state is going to be tilt blue. Then in Ohio, the Buckeye State is going to vote for Trump for a 3rd time in a row. The former president leads by 8.2%. He's been dominating in virtually every single poll. The state is going to be likely red. And then in the Keystone state of Pennsylvania, this is where all the attention is. Both sides know it. Pennsylvania is probably going to be the state that will decide the election. Now, if Trump wins Wisconsin or Michigan, he'll still win the election even if he doesn't get Pennsylvania, but it's much more likely that he'll win Pennsylvania before he can get Wisconsin or Michigan. And according to the polling average in the Keystone State, Donald Trump leads by 0.4%. In fact, Kamala Harris hasn't led in any of the 9 most recent polls from the state. We have a lot of ties, many polls that show Trump leading, but only 1 out of the last 10 have the vice president ahead. This is a state that Biden won in the last election by 1.2%, and it's a state that Biden led in the polling by 6% at this point in 2020. Now Trump leads. Kamala Harris isn't even ahead. There's basically no chance that the vice president is going to win Pennsylvania, and the polling does reflect that. The Keystone State is going to be tilt red on this map, but it'll be more than enough to help Trump get to 270 electoral votes. Moving up now to the Northeast, which is a very liberal region, Kamala Harris is going to win Vermont, Massachusetts, Connecticut, Rhode Island, Maryland, and the District of Columbia by solid margins, while New Jersey and Delaware will be likely blue. And then in New York, we do have a polling average, and it shows Vice President Harris leading by under 14 points. This would be the worst Democratic performance for any Democrat since 1988. With all the scandals that Democratic leaders in New York have been going through over the last few years, this is not all too surprising. The Empire State is going to be likely blue. In New Hampshire, Biden won here by 7 points in the last election, but Hillary Clinton only won it by 0.37. Today, Harris leads by 7.7%, but obviously this isn't going to happen. The only reason why she's up by so much is because of this University of New Hampshire poll, which is one of the most liberal pollsters in the entire country. There's no way Harris is going to outperform Biden by 4 points. This poll is absolutely wrong. She's probably going to win by less than 7 points here. And then in Maine, the vice president is ahead by 11.7. Once again, we have two polls from the University of New Hampshire. There's no way Harris is going to do better than Joe Biden, who only won Maine by 9 points. So both of these states are going to be likely blue based on the polling average, but I would be totally surprised if she's actually able to win these states by 7 points or more, while the 1st District of Maine is going to be solid blue and the 2nd District likely red. Moving down to the south, this is a Trump-dominated region. Louisiana, Arkansas, Missouri, Mississippi, Alabama, Tennessee, Kentucky, West Virginia, and South Carolina. All of these states are going to be safe for the former president, while in Virginia, the polling average currently has Harris up by 4.8%. Again, this is a pretty weak margin. Trump won the Commonwealth of Virginia by 11 points in 2020. Glenn Youngkin won the governorship as a Republican just 1 year later in 2021. Virginia is much more competitive than it was 4 years ago, and the polling average is reflecting that. In fact, half of these polls show Harris leading by 3 percentage points or less, with the most recent one being a poll conducted by Rasmussen Reports. Virginia is probably going to be the 8th swing state. We have the 7 already with Nevada, Arizona, Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, and Georgia. I would add Virginia as the 8th swing state. It's probably going to be hyper competitive, and it will go down to the wire this November, so we'd be sure to keep an eye on it. But for now, it is going to be a lean blue on our map. Down in North Carolina and Georgia, we have two tilt states, with Trump on track to win the Tar Heel state by 0.9% and Georgia by 1.6. In 2020, Joe Biden actually won Georgia, defeating Trump by less than a quarter of a percentage point, while North Carolina remained true to the former president. He won it by 1.3. North Carolina is the only swing state out of the 7 that's gone to the former president in both of the last 2 elections. But this time around, Trump is on track to win both of these competitive Sun Belt states. Both North Carolina and Georgia are going to be tilt red on our map, but in the end, I do expect him to win these states by 2 percentage points or more. And finally, in Florida, we all know Trump is going to win here. He leads by 6%. In fact, his polling average is higher in the Sunshine State than it is in Texas, but we all know that's wrong. In the end, Trump is going to win both of these states by around 10 percentage points. So Florida is going to be lean red on our map, but when all the votes are counted, it's probably going to go to him by a much larger margin. And so based on current polling averages from every single state, Trump is on track to win the election with 281 electoral votes, a strong victory against Kamala Harris, who's only on track to take 257. And I would argue that Trump would also be able to win Nevada, Wisconsin, and Michigan just because of how terribly Harris is polling there compared to the 2 previous Democratic nominees. Thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe right now for more content like this leading up to the election in November, and follow me on Twitter for daily political updates. Link in the description below.